There can be few better careers before becoming a crime writer than to have been a cop. And that's exactly what Paul Finch was. Not only was he a cop, he then became a writer on The Bill, probably the most respected for accuracy TV series there's ever been in the UK. And he's gone on from there to make a very successful career as a screenwriter and as a brilliant novelist.
Learn from your rejections. One thing I would, just to elaborate very quickly, if stuff continues to be bounced, you have to assume there might be a problem with it. And if an editor or a publisher or a broadcaster or a producer takes the trouble to tell you why, you've got to listen. You don't have to agree, but at least listen. I think it's my second Mark Heckenberg novel, Sacrifice. It involves, it was the follow-up book to Stalkers, which was the first in the series, which was quite successful. Sacrifice was allowed me to utilise my interest in folklore and mythology. Though it's actually a cop novel, it's not a supernatural novel. There's a lot of eerie, arcane mystery in it, and quite a bit of gore as well, for those who like that kind of thing. I don't think it's anything really to be guilty. I still keep my hand in the horror market in that I edit a series of independent press horror anthologies, the Terror Tales series. I don't really write for them, but I edit them, and I kind of pay for them out of my own pocket. And they sell a few hundred, and it's a lot of fun. It's quite interesting because other people do the writing and I edit, so it's my kind of way of still keeping my hand in the horror market. That's the sort of thing. It's a hobby, really, but I'm not disciplined in that I'm a 9 till 5, Monday to Friday kind of writer. I do it full time, so I kind of write. Usually, it's in the afternoons, sometimes in the evenings, sometimes at weekends, sometimes not. I dictate a lot, and then I type it up later on. So it's a bit haphazard. It's usually when, if I was to say it's when the mood takes me, that is actually untrue because I do work, but it's not a straightforward 9 till 5. No, I don't think so. As I say, I still do dictate my first drafts a lot. So dog walking. I have the two fittest spaniels in Lancashire because we walk for miles and miles and miles while I'm dictating my first draft. So while it's not exactly a ritual, it tends to be the way the whole process starts, with an epic dog walk. Yeah, I was a policeman first, but my dad was an author, and I kind of suppressed it during my years as a copper. But increasingly, I began to realise that I had this yearning to write, and I wouldn't want to do anything else. It's the best job I've ever had, bar none. Well, I do it in quite a lot of detail. I tend to, it's the usual thing, premise initially, the outline, and once my publisher has okayed it, I kind of do a chapter-by-chapter treatment. That can vary from 10,000 words to 30,000 words. I'm glad to say I've reached a stage now where that's usually enough. My editor says, okay, go, and I just start writing the book. I tend to stick as close as I can to the skeleton of the book that I've presented to my publishers. If a great idea occurs halfway through and it means a right turn or whatever, I tend to okay it with them. So yeah, I literally plan it down to the chapter by chapter. As I said, it doesn't mean it won't change, but that's the basic process. Where do you get your ideas from? Well, I kind of take influence from lots of different places. Real events, things from my own police experience, things from other coppers' experience who I know personally. I always keep my ear one ear to the ground, I think, for good stories, as a lot of us writers do. Quite often at events like this, everyone's chatting and exchanging tales, and you think, wow, well, that wouldn't make a bad story. That's one to write down. I tend to always have a scrapbook with me, a little notepad whenever I'm on holiday. So it's always a case of, if an idea pops into my head, just get a few lines down and you know, take it from there at some later date. So I think it's safe to say I've got a file of ideas which is as thick as a telephone directory. It's becoming problematic keeping track of them all, so I don't have a problem finding ideas. When I first started, I used to write horror, and I think I was inspired to that by the classic horror writers, M.R. James, H.P. Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe, the original classics. Since I've moved into crime writing, I kind of have a whole host of writers whose work I really admire. Peter James is an obvious one. Stuart McBride is another one. Val McDermid. Household names, but I find them because they're just so readable. Very much influenced by those kind of books. Yeah, I certainly have. Usually it's in computer glitch type situations. In the early days of when everything, I started like so many of us did, I was on a typewriter. And then, of course, you had a written record of everything you did. Most of it now exists electronically. I lost an entire screenplay, which I'd literally just finished by now computers obviously now tend to back up automatically every 5 minutes. This was an early word processing system, and I'd finished what I think was probably a 20,000 word screenplay, and I was feeling so pleased, and I hadn't automatically backed up. Don't ask me why, I just hadn't done it, and I yawned and stretched and feeling pleased as punch, pushed my chair back without realising the plug was wrapped around the caster on the chair, and it pulled the plug out. The computer instantly died, and everything had gone forever. The whole script had gone. And I'd take a lot more care now, a lot more care. I back up everything all the time, constantly. That night, I think I didn't sleep all night. I think I cried out in anguish when I realised what I'd done. Kath came running up to my office, because I had an office in one of the spare bedrooms. And it was heartbreaking. Yeah. And it's never been recovered, it had gone. So.
Thank you, Paul Finch. You're nicked. Stay tuned for lots more to come on the Author's Studio.